And I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The member for Warringah says we should not ignore the science. So I will only talk about the science, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, the member for Warringah in point 3 of the motion says that a plan to decarbonise every polluting sector by 2050, which will reduce the incidence of extreme temperatures and more extreme weather. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Order.
My apologies, Deputy Speaker. The science tells us...
There's not that much gender diversity in the chair.
The science tells us, and if you follow the science, that Australia's emissions are 1.3% of the global total. And let's just say we so-called decarbonise, which in itself is a misleading word, because we are talking about carbon dioxide and methane. If we reduce all our carbon dioxide emissions from our transport sector and our electricity sector, and if we reduce all our methane emissions from our farting cattle, which make up about 15% of our total greenhouse gas emissions, and also from our gas extraction, Deputy Speaker, if we reduce that down to zero, what would be the effect of the temperature? What would be the effect? You know the answer. It is zero. It is zero. So point 3 here, Deputy Speaker, is simply snake oil salesman. To say that we can reduce somehow the incidence of extreme temperature in this country by doing something in this country when China is building 100 new coal-fired power stations, Deputy Speaker, is simply selling snake oil. Now, also it's interesting, yes, if we do have more hot weather in the future, what will happen about the warmer winters? Well, the IPCC actually comments on this in their IPCC, their third report, and they quote, "Warmer winters and fewer cold spells because of climate change will decrease, that means lower, cold weather-related mortality in many countries." So we'll get lower deaths from less cold weather. Now, so what would the balance be, Deputy Speaker? Is cold weather a bigger killer or is heat a bigger killer? Well, let's again go to what the science says, Deputy Speaker, because the science is very clear on this. In fact, a paper published in the Lancet in 2015 says that cold weather kills 20 times more people than hot weather. 20 times more people. It is cold weather that we should be fearful about. And what about, does that apply in Australia, Deputy Speaker? Well, again, let's go and see what the science says. A paper published by ScienceDirect only earlier this year, February this year, by Cheng et al., and it found, Deputy Speaker, and I quote from the paper, heat and cold temperature variability together resulted in 42,414 deaths during the study period, accounting for about 6% of all deaths. Most of the deaths were due to cold, 61.4%, compared to that from heat, 10%. So here in Australia, the peer-reviewed science says we get 6 times more death from cold weather. And what is the policy response? To have policies that increase the price of electricity, that make it harder for Australians to heat their homes in winters, that also makes it harder for them to air condition their homes in summers. The policy response that they come up with here, Deputy Speaker, will actually cause more deaths. It will cause more harm, and it will do nothing to change the climate. One of the great principles for medicine is do no harm. That is part of the Hippocratic Oath. These doctors that have signed this paper are in violation of the Hippocratic Oath because they are pushing policies that will do harm to Australians, that will do harm to Australian children, because if people can't afford their air conditioning in winter, which is exactly what these policies that you propose will happen, will cause more deaths. That's what it will cause. This is a complete violation of the Hippocratic Oath, Deputy Speaker. I hear laughing from the other side over there. You do not know the damage that you cause. You do not know the damage that you cause. Already we have record amounts of Australians in this country that cannot afford to heat their homes in winter and have had their electricity disconnected because of the policies your side of politics have pushed. That's the mess that you've got in. And I will keep going. And when nonsense motions comes up like this, Deputy Speaker, I will rebut them and I will stand here and I will quote the science day after day after day. Because the policy responses that you're pushing forward are actually going to cause a lot of harm to many, many Australians, especially low-income earners.